I'm Eric Olen, and this is episode 127 of the Talking Grammar podcast.
What's going on, everybody? It's Jeff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal, and as you just heard, this is episode 127 of the Talking Grammar podcast. Eric Olen, the second-year Lobo basketball coach, is our guest on this episode, and it's actually a recording that I recorded a little over an hour-long worth of content with Eric that I'm going to split into two parts. So this will be episode 127. There will also be an episode 128, a part two of this conversation that I had with Eric. The second part that will come out early next week, I will release it on Monday next week. It's going to really be focused on Eric talking about the players on this year's team, kind of give us a player-by-player breakdown of everybody on the roster. The first part that you're going to see today is Eric and I talking a little bit about what college athletics is right now, what recruiting is. We do talk Donovan Dent. We do talk fifth-year players. We do talk the offseason that was a pretty crazy one for basketball coaches, college basketball coaches in particular, where there was no offseason. And then when they thought there was going to be an offseason, court rulings kind of changed everything. So how did that affect how the Lobos recruited this year? This roster is built at a time when a lot of uncertainty still exists. Even as the school year is about to start, there's a lot of uncertainty about things. So we talk about all that, and we review a lot of last year. I know it's August. Time for reviewing last year maybe has passed, but we review a lot of last year, and I think it's insightful. I think there's some telling things about Coach Olen, about how Eric thinks about things, about the competitiveness of him and some of his players, Jake Hall in particular. And we go kind of game by game. I shouldn't say game by game, but a couple stretches of the season where there were some ups and there were some downs for this past year's team and what he learned and that kind of stuff. So I think you're going to enjoy these two podcasts with Eric Olen, sort of relaunching, even though it's football season, sort of relaunching the Talking Grammar podcast for the year. I will tell you this, that the sports podcasts are up and running at the Journal. The Albuquerque Journal Podcast Network, on a regular basis, if you are interested in advertising, please reach out to me. You know how to get a hold of me on social media. You can call me. You can certainly email me, ggrammer@abqjournal.com. We have advertising and sponsorship opportunities available for the podcast this year. Sean Ryder and I, my colleague, the primary football writer for the Journal, and I are hitting strong this year. Our weekly, every Tuesday afternoon at 1:30, ABQ Journal Sports Live, that live show every week, about 90 minutes, 1:30 to 3 every Tuesday with you guys, with the readers and viewers, I suppose. It's not really readers. I'm in the newspaper mindset still. But the viewers are part of that show. You guys ask the questions. We have guests. Just yesterday, as I record this, we had Ryan Berryman, new UNM athletic director, on. So you can ask the questions real time. You can watch it after the fact if you want. But a weekly show, ABQ Journal Sports Live with Sean Ryder and I. We will also, come basketball season, I will have a pregame show live from the pit or wherever I am on the road before every Lobo basketball game, setting up that game, letting you know about injuries, letting you know about just the state of the team, where things stand at any given time. I will also tell you that the post-game shows with Sean Ryder and I after football games will be a regular thing this year. And, of course, Sean has his football-specific podcast, Writer's Block. So those four podcasts, those four products in particular. James Yotis also has his high school one. David Glovac, our new reporter at the Journal, is going to have something that's launching here pretty soon. But the four podcasts in particular that I can tell you can reach out to me for advertising opportunities, and I can get you set up on that, is this Talking Grammar podcast. It is the ABQ Journal Sports Live once a week with Sean Ryder and I, the Lobo football post-game shows that we do, and the UNM Lobo basketball pregame shows, as well as, I suppose I don't know how to count very well because there's 5 of them, and that's also Writer's Block. If you have interest in advertising in any of those 5 products, any of those 5 shows, please reach out to me. This podcast in particular, this episode in particular, is Eric Olen. And there's some cool stuff going on with Lobo basketball this year. We do break down the roster in our second part of this podcast. This podcast right here, as you're about to find out from Eric Olen, talks a lot about the offseason, how he built this year's team, his thoughts about going into year 2 as the Lobo basketball coach. I hope you enjoy this podcast, this episode of the Talking Grammar podcast. Here we go. Here's my conversation with UNM Lobo basketball coach Eric Olen. how has your off season been? Maybe not so much as a coach, but how has the off season for the Olen family been?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a good summer for us, and last summer was pretty hectic with all the moving, and so it's nice to kind of have a summer here where we're settled in, and the team had a good summer. We're kind of on the back end of a break where everyone was able to take a little bit of time off and come back and get started next week. So yeah, it's been good.
I get the coaching life is what it is normally, but there's nothing normal about the last several years. This offseason in particular I think for basketball coaches really put a test into I've said before that I think the coaches' wives in all sports and college athletics and pro athletics, like the coaches' spouses go through an awful lot and have to put up with an awful lot. I think college basketball, because the way the recruiting calendar there was no immediate offseason after the season, especially for a team that went into April in the NIT, then recruiting, transfer portal, then the regular sort of prep recruiting in the summer. And then all of a sudden to start August, you guys kind of are told this prep recruiting window reopened up because of court cases. The strain on your coaching staff's spouses and families, I'm curious if that's something that's come up at all in conversation with you coaches, and like how you guys are making sure all the spouses aren't just killing you guys by now.
Yeah, I think the families and all this are sort of the unsung heroes and making this all possible. I know certainly to do this job without the support at home would be impossible basically, and so I think everybody's families are tested and strained at different times of the year with our schedule, and we don't have a 9 to 5 where you're home on the weekends, and so it's different, right? So there's pros and cons to it all, and it definitely there's a lot of sacrifices that our families make in order for us to be able to do this job that we all love doing, and yeah, I appreciate you recognizing that. We appreciate them more than we can articulate, I think.
Without delving too deep into the specifics of it, I think there were some coaches who might not have even been in the country when certain court rulings recently were announced, and I imagine when you had to tell, or any of you guys had to tell the spouses of, hey, something else just happened. Is there a look on Lauren's on your wife's face when you kind of have to tell her about like the latest change in the recruiting calendar?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the new normal, so it's just
Okay,
like,
so
oh, another
she's
thing,
yeah.
But I was actually, I was in Italy recruiting at the European Championships. So, my phone started going off at, I think it was, 2, 3 in the morning over there. And then I'm on, like looking through lists of players at 3 in the morning, like, all right, is this going to be possible? Calling, I think I called Sam at some point, and he's in the middle of a vacation. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
you got some work to do. Let's start putting some lists together. So every plan we have kind of gets blown up at this stage, and it's you got to be ready to pivot and adjust. But yeah, it's kind of never ending. So it
It
is what
used
it
to
is.
be what, like April, you were able to take a little bit of time off and then kind of hit hard. I guess then at that point, before the transfer portal, even April, you could take some time off or at least slow down quite a bit. But then you start hitting the prep recruiting pretty hard. And then there's some kind of pattern to that over the summer where there's a couple blitzes of peach jams and stuff like that. But there were kind of scheduled times where you could plan a vacation. You guys don't really have that anymore until early August of this year, which then got thrown out the window.
Yeah, the calendar has really just has become pretty relentless. Like there aren't many breaks in it. We had kind of tried to have an extended break this kind of summer between the start. I thought we got a little fatigued last year. Obviously, we played a long season, but I thought we got a little fatigued at times late in the season, and so we're trying to be a little measured in how we progress this year and build in some breaks and things like that. And so there's always some unforeseen things that are coming up, and we're trying to navigate and figure out if is there a way to add value to our roster at this stage, or is that possible? Is it not? And I think right now there's still more questions than answers. I think we got an appeal in the 10th Circuit. We're all waiting to see what happens with, and I'm more familiar with how some of these court procedures go than I thought I would be. But
You wanted to be.
it's just the new age of college basketball. So we're just trying to deal with it the best we can.
All right. In that regard, the current state of the Lobo basketball roster for the 26-27 season, as we record this in the middle of August, it should be set. But I suppose you can never close the door. Like almost at any time of the year, it seems like now. What is the current status of Lobo basketball roster?
Currently, we have 13 players. We like our roster a lot. We like our group. We are continuing to just kind of pay attention to who's going to be eligible. And, I know our staff, and we're having conversations daily with agents and representatives about, potential things and like just, it's more information gathering at this stage for us. But, we don't have, I don't see a path for us currently to add, but it's kind of never say never in today's landscape. So I don't want to, say definitively nothing could happen in the next couple of weeks, but I think it is a, pretty minimal chance of things changing for us.
I'd be remiss if I don't ask about the name in the room. I guess the name in Albuquerque, and that's Donovan Dent, who former Lobo. Obviously, he's in a really unique situation, and it puts you as a coach and schools in a unique situation. Because while us as fans and media all sort of talk about him in this realm of where is he going to be next year, technically as we speak, he is not an eligible player to play next year. Certainly not in the NCAA's eyes. I all that said and all the setup, the setup as well as anybody. What is what can you say about Donovan Dent and any kind of possibility or what has happened with Donovan Dent and the UNM Lobos this offseason with all this going on?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Donovan Dent is an incredible basketball player who could help every team in the country, including ours, right? And I think I actually think he'd be a great fit in how we play with, kind of the space on the floor and his ability to put pressure on the rim. He's a great decision maker, just dynamic with the ball in his hands. Like, so, huge fan of Donovan and his game. But relative to kind of the what we were just talking about, we don't really have a path in terms of resources to add players at this time. Certainly players with his market value, for lack of a better term. I don't see really any path to that for us and him working out. But like you said, he doesn't currently have eligibility. I think there's a decent chance that will change, and I'm sure he's got plenty of schools interested, and from what we've been told, offers that are very lucrative that we don't have the capability of getting anywhere close to or being involved in that type of recruitment.
This might be more of me just saying it here with you there, not being able to say some of the same stuff, but it would almost be unfair for both the program and for Donovan to, in my mind, almost, I don't want to say entertain because it's worth at least looking into, but it would be unfair to ask him to take the kind of discount he would have to take to come to UNM, and it'd be unfair for UNM to really be put in a position where, I don't know, look, the guy's going to get paid significant money, and probably more than he got paid last year when he left the first time to go to UCLA. And I think people need to understand, like, it's not even in the ballpark. It's life-changing stuff.
A full scholarship isn't quite as competitive in this market. So we're pretty far away. And I think he's, like I said, he's such a talented player, big fan of his game. We understand what he did here in New Mexico basketball. We appreciate that because we're benefiting from the elevation he had from the program that we took over, and so we're grateful to Donovan for the work that he did here. But we don't see a path for him to be part of our team here coming up.
Other offseason questions real quick. I want to check some boxes on this. The current state of some coaches leaving, win a national championship, go to the NBA. You may not, people I think sometimes think in terms of just UNM basketball, and you're the second year coach. You've been in basketball for 20 plus years as a coach, and I am curious if this has soured you at all to coaching, or is it just sort of an evolution that you kind of you take what the changes are, and then you evaluate them as you go. Maybe it's a process, but where are you at right now with just how fun it is to be a coach?
Oh, no, I'm absolutely not soured at all. I mean, there's aspects of it that aren't my favorite, and things have changed. But things are going to continue to change. And, do I wish that retention was easier or more, prevalent in what we're
Yeah, more
doing?
common, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I think that, I do miss the having the guys for multiple years and really developing and seeing them grow within our program. That's something I really loved about, what we were doing, a few years back. And we'd like to, find ways to have more of that in our program. But I still I still love the competition. I love coaching. I love the guys in our program. Like, we have great guys. They're fun to work with. I got a fantastic staff. Like, I think it's easy to focus on the things that, maybe perceived as negative, or aren't your favorite aspects of the job. But, like, I love what I'm doing every day. I love that I get to be the head coach at New Mexico, and, I love that this is a community that supports the program, and, we got all the fans that show up in the pit every day. Those are things that we don't take for granted at all, and really appreciate about this job and this opportunity. So, while there's always, I mean, but everyone has aspects of their job that they don't love. Like, that's not
Yeah.
unique to coaching. So, by and large, I just feel fortunate to be in the position, and any day doing this is better than a real job to me.
Yeah, I've always given coaches a bit of a hard time that it's hard for me ever to feel sorry for the coaches and all of this. That said, I
Yeah.
did start the show talking about, like, you guys are going through, like, it is real life. There are families involved here, and it is changing. So, but yeah, it is changing, and it does affect you guys quite a bit. But at the end of the day, and I have the same thing, different levels of different perspectives, obviously, but I get paid to watch college basketball. You get paid to be around college basketball and coaching. The big picture. It's still a pretty cool gig that both of us have.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have real jobs that are hard, and like, we all have our challenges, but, like, no, I consider myself, more than fortunate, and grateful to be in the position I'm in.
I want to look back to last year a little bit before we look ahead to this year's team. Part of last year was sort of getting to know the situation. Part of it was maybe, I don't know if you ever viewed it as this, but proving yourself. I think any new coach coming into a program is as proud as the UNM program. To some people, still has to prove themselves, but you did come from a smaller school, so I think there was probably a little more winning over of some fans and some people that you probably had to do that maybe previous coaches, going back to like an Alford and a Patino, had been at bigger schools and then came here, but a Craig Neal and a Paul Weir had to prove themselves, and it didn't go as well. I think last year went pretty well for you overall, but I also don't want to speak for you. Do you feel that there was a certain level of coming, I guess, trajectory wise, from a smaller school up to a bigger program like a UNM? Did you feel that you had to kind of prove yourself at all, or did you try and get out of that mindset?
Yeah, I don't think about it that way. Like, I certainly understand that point of view and question, but, I think that, you know, having some experience in it, and again, I get that the levels are different, but, like, we've talked about that, like, having lots of reps at Division 2, and some of those years, like, those are so valuable, because I
Yeah.
think that, and you mentioned, some guys who maybe weren't as successful, but maybe didn't have the same number of reps, right? Relative, and again, levels are different. I get it, but, like, the reps still matter. And so, I think that I was at a place, or still obviously am, but even coming here, where feeling like, I know who I am as a coach, like, know what works for me and for us as a staff. And so, pretty convicted in some of those things. And while not so convicted that we aren't willing to make adjustments or change or those kind of things, but, certainly feeling like, we believe in this and, it's going to work, right? Like that's how we think and feel. And so, um, to me, it just felt like a matter of time. And, um, we got there maybe a little earlier than people expected, but we have pretty high expectations for ourselves here. And so, um, we feel good about last year, but like also that we left some things on the table and came up short in several ways. And so, I think that, you know, we certainly don't feel like we've made it or we've proved it or we've done it, with um, coming up short in the regular season, not getting it done in the conference tournament, having a pretty good run in the NIT, but not getting that done.
Yeah.
We didn't make the NCAA tournament. We won some games, but like we didn't really accomplish anything either. So, we certainly, uh, it's not like we have something to prove, but like there's more to be done.
I guess too, we always look for putting a bow on something, and we want to check a box. But I suppose for the sake of asking, what was your first season as Lobo basketball coach a success?
I think in some ways, yes, but like I said, in other ways, no. And I
It's
don't.
not a simple answer, I guess, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's not. It's right. Like, I think it's like this. Every season is its own kind of process and journey, and I think in every single one of those, whether regardless of the win loss record or where you kind of get to, like I think you can point to some aspects of it where you feel like you feel really good about, and you feel like also like there was more out there for us that we didn't accomplish, and I think short of you know winning a national championship or you know what I mean, like it's hard to get to a place where we had a great year in San Diego before we got here, but like there's some ones that I'm never going to forget and then we can never have back and that we would love, and I think that's probably the sickness we all have as coaches. I think um I can't even remember which which game it was during the year, but Lauren asked me like, well, how do you feel about it? How are you doing? And I was like, no, I'm okay. Like, I'm never going to get over it for the rest of my life, but like, I'm okay.
but I'm
That
okay.
like, it's just like, I'll just never get over that loss for the rest of my life, but it's fine.
I do think the sickness that coaches have is a competitor. It's a sickness that competitors have, and I think myself included. I as a reporter, maybe I do look for people say we push narratives a lot, and that's fine, a fair criticism of the media. But we do tell stories, and sometimes I think we maybe look for ways to describe people, and I think I probably just like a lot of fans bought into the whole Southern California guy. You and Jake Hall both. I've said, and I posted on social media. I got some pushback from a former Lobo player when I said I thought Jake Hall was actually as competitive as anybody I've covered. He may not project that openly as much because of the Southern California floppy blonde hair surfer vibe kind of thing. But I do think you and Jake Hall both maybe. I think it would surprise some people to know how competitive the both of you are, because you do have in a lot of settings this chill Southern California vibe. Do you think that's something that people maybe take for granted, that you can both be calm and have a bit of a chill vibe at times, but also be ultra competitive?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I mean, first of all, I think that anyone that compares me and Jake in our level of Southern California is like missing.
Fair. That's
You know
fair.
what I mean?
He
Like,
is Southern California.
yeah, yeah, for
Yes.
sure. But no, Jake's a psycho. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he like, and I think a lot of that shows up in how he works. Like, I think if people saw the work that he's putting in, and that would it would be more obvious, right? And so like you see him on the court, but like nobody's working harder than that guy. Nobody shoots more shots. Like I mean, and that's why he keeps getting better. I thought he got better as the season went along. I thought he came back this summer better than he was before. I think that's what we're looking for in guys, and he's not the only one. I mean, I think Uriah Tenet is going to take a big jump. I think that other guys in our program are going to continue to progress, and then they want to be really good. And so, we're looking for guys like that. But yeah, Jake's absolutely, on the upper echelon of competitiveness. And I think that we're trying to find people within our program, from coaching staff through the players. We want that competitiveness and that edge to permeate our program. But yeah, it doesn't always kind of materialize the same way on the court for everybody. Everybody's kind of unique in that, and so I
Yeah,
think that's kind of what you're talking about.
I think when a player's not yelling and fighting or almost getting into shoving matches with opponents, sometimes people maybe question their competitiveness. I'm sold that Jake is a competitor, even though I didn't see him getting into any, I guess, fights or anything like that. Like I think on the court he's pretty stoic. It's not that he doesn't have a show emotion; he certainly does, but he I guess doesn't. I don't know if he doesn't portray himself like a competitor to some people, but the guy's competitive, and you know it better
Yeah,
than anyone.
and he
So
takes a ton of ownership in what we're doing, right? And like pride in his performance, and like not just his own performance, but for our team. I think about, like, you were talking to him after a tough loss at Utah State, where we had a chance to get a share of the regular season, and like, I mean, that was an unbelievable performance from him, right? Like
you guys
30
had a
30
chance at a
plus,
regular season championship because of what J. Cole did in that game
because he had 30 plus, and you know what I mean, like on the
on
road
the
in
road.
a crazy environment, right? And like, and afterwards, when you're talking to him, he's only talking about or thinking about the ones he missed at the end, and not the fact that he carried us for the first 30 plus minutes of the game to even give us the opportunity. And so, yeah, I think everybody's sort of competitiveness gets displayed differently based on their own kind of personality traits or whatever. But like, I think part of why we were able to get land him at UC San Diego is like some of the "don't judge a book by its cover."
Yeah,
Like, I mean, his brother's the same. Dax Hall is another good example of that, right? Like, Dax is so much better than his recruitment. And I
yeah.
think people are going to see that here pretty soon.
Is Dax gonna? I'll get to the players in a little bit, but since he just came up, is Dax gonna get some minutes as a true freshman?
Oh, basically, I mean, if he keeps playing the way he played this summer, yeah, it's going to be hard to keep him off the floor.
I do want to keep people updated on any Dax Hall versus Jake Hall competitions when they run the mile with Reese, when they do anything, and I plan to make sure every time Dax beats Jake at something, to sort of poke the bear a bit, because I do think it really bothers Jake, and it's fun to see him control that, because I know he wants to handle it well. It's his brother, but man, it bugs him.
Well,
It
yeah,
really,
I mean, losing anything bothers Jake. Like, so,
yeah.
so whether it's golf or a shooting competition or whatever. So, yeah, but certainly there's a healthy rivalry there, and they compete in a lot of aspects.
All right, last season too, and then we'll get to move on. What did you learn about the fans? I know you knew it was a special place. Is there anything that stands out to you in terms of maybe a surprise? The fun story from recruitment last year, and this is over a year ago now, but it was last spring. The Starbucks story. If it was Starbucks, I think it was Starbucks. But when somebody
Yeah,
wrote on your cup, can you remind us what that story was when you were still recruiting last spring?
yeah. I can't. I mean, we were. I can't remember when it was, but I was in a Starbucks just grabbing a coffee, and instead of writing my name on the cup, they wrote, "Are we going to take another big in this class?" And so, no,
Even
I just,
baristas are on it, man.
yeah, no. But then when I talked to the young man who wrote it, like, I think his grandfather had played here a long time ago, and like he'd been a fan forever, and I think that's something that is really hard to understand until you get here, is sort of like the generational aspect of the fandom. And the other thing that I talk about in recruiting is, like, there's lots of places with good atmospheres, and the people, kind of fill the seats. Um, I think that the fans here have like they show up with purpose, with a
Yeah,
different, you know what I mean? Like the pride in, like, I'm coming to the pit to, like, add to the atmosphere, to make noise, to, like, like the intentionality and understanding of their impact here is unique to me. and I don't think that happened, right? Like there's lots of places where it's like, oh, everybody's in the building, but like, are they really into the game, or
Right.
are they just there to be there, and I really love the purpose and the intention that our fans show up with, and you feel it on the court, and it's not just, oh, we're ahead, we dunked the ball, we made a three, like let's get, we had times during the season where we're down 12 and not playing well, and you feel them like come alive to help us. And I just think like their understanding of their impact is really, really high level here.
The fans have an ownership here that I don't know that they have elsewhere, and
Exactly.
part of that is because the pit has made this program in an awful lot of ways. I mean, the most memorable national moment for UNM basketball has to do with the game UNM basketball probably wasn't in, and
Right.
the Final Four, and it was because of the building and the building getting filled by New Mexicans, and so I do think there's a unique ownership here that has to do with, as I speak to the Lobo basketball coach, I will say it, but it has to do with maybe a lack of ultimate success by the team, and yet still being at a status where the fans have created an atmosphere that it looks like you guys are hanging Final Four banners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And like that's, and I think that that's something that, again, we don't take for granted. Like you mentioned where we had come from it was small, we were Division II for a long time. We had some success in that Division I transition, and we started to get some students showing up. But like, you know, I sit next to Wilder, and every time it tips up, I'm like, because he's at Irvine, which is a
yeah,
similar type. I'm like, man, this is cool, right? Like we like it's not lost on us. We appreciate the environment we're in, and it's not something we take for granted. And so like we feel that we feel their ownership, we feel our responsibility in that, and I think that's something that drives us. And I know that we talk to our players about that, right? Like. There's a responsibility here that we have to the people in this community who support us because um, it's special. It's
yeah,
not, it doesn't exist everywhere. No matter, you know what I mean? Like, I'm from Alabama, like in the South. Like, I know what SEC football looks like. SEC basketball is not that at a lot of places. I mean, there's so many places, Power Four schools, who would do anything to have the kind of support that we have here. Right. And I think that's what makes us special. And that's what, in my mind, gives us like just a crazy ceiling here. Like what's possible here is really exciting to think about.
I want to go through some of the games from last year and then just ask your memory. The first couple, I mentioned to you before I started recording today that when I go back now and look at the schedule, there was sort of, I said cadence is how it goes, where I think teams usually have some kind of steady ebbs and flows. I think you guys had a little bit more ebbs and flows than I thought. I want to ask you, and this first, I'm going to combine two games at one. It's really part of a 5 game stretch, but there's two games in one question I want to ask you to comment on, and it has to do with the pit. Because I think I heard you tell Portnoy this. It might have been in your in the MW Plus. I'll give them a quick little mention interview that you guys did at the Frontier with Coach Egan. But Alabama State and Santa Clara are two games that I think you had mentioned, singled out for very different reasons, but why that pit crowd, sort of the nudge Wilder and say, look at this kind of thing. But for two very different reasons, I thought the pit and the crowd had an awful lot to do with those two games very early in the season. What's your recollection of the Alabama State game?
I thought that was a pivotal moment for us, really. We were coming off a win in Mississippi State to finish the Kansas City, right, which sort of broke our skid there with the two in a row. And then, I think it was hard. Sometimes you have a good win and like team's not as talented coming in and it's hard to get going. And I think we felt that and really played poorly, especially in the first half. And I think we were down 15 at the half. But I genuinely felt like we were going to win the game the whole time, even at halftime. Like I think our messaging at halftime was pretty. There wasn't a lot of yelling and screaming. It was just like, all right, we got a little test on it here. Like we need to respond, and guys did that, and the crowd was a big part of it. Like you could feel them kind of driving that. I kind of mentioned it earlier. When you're not playing well, to have the crowd get involved and help you kind of get it back, and especially you're the better team. Like if we could just keep doing this, we're going to get there. And I thought our guys showed a lot of maturity in that, but the crowd was a big part of that comeback. Sort of avoiding disaster, for lack of a better word, in terms of the resume and those things, and dropping that game at home would have been less than ideal, certainly. And so kind of surviving that and kind of getting our feet under us, and then having a really good team coming in and playing well.
And there
and we felt them start.
There was a Highlands game in between, just so
okay, yeah.
But D2 Highlands game in between, and then Santa Clara. But I'm combining.
And that's probably good for us to just kind of catch our breath, recover from a bad performance, and then get ready for Santa Clara there. But I thought that stretch was really important to our season, and I thought we sort of parlayed that into a really good performance on the road at VCU. But that was an important stretch, not just for the resume and those things, but I think for our guys to really feel the confidence of no, we're legitimately a really good team. And we felt that the whole time, and it just kind of felt like, when are we going to get this thing together? But it felt like some things clicked for us there. We gained a lot of confidence, I thought, in that stretch. And, the atmosphere and playing at home against, some of those teams. And, Alabama State probably ran out of gas a little bit. Certainly Santa Clara. That game was actually we took control. They came back, and then they didn't have anything left once we responded, and then that kind of ballooned at the end because they ran out of gas. So we sort of felt like what's possible here, how difficult it can be to beat us at home. Yeah.
I think there was a 6 game, and that was a part of it, the Alabama State Santa Clara, while I know the Highlands was in between, but those 2 games I thought were, and I'd heard you speak about them before, but it was really part of a 6-game stretch that sort of proves, you never read too much into a good game or a bad game, because this is the stretch you guys had. Nebraska. And the first half of Nebraska looked like some of the worst Lobo basketball I think I've covered in 15 years. But in hindsight, maybe it was really just on one end of the floor, because I don't know that you guys, I don't know, were you guys, how was the offense and defense in that first half of the Nebraska game?
So the defense was terrible, right? We were trying to play a lot of matchup zone. That was actually halftime of that game. We stopped playing zone really for the rest of the season almost, right? Yeah. And it just was kind of no, we got to find some things that we can be good at. We're trying to do too much, right? And so I think that's, I don't want to say normal. I'm sure some people do it better than I did, but that was a place where kind of us figuring some things out was still happening there. But yeah, just tough matchup in terms of our defensive style versus a Nebraska team that shoots the ball really well. So that going in, it was a difficult matchup. We tried some things that didn't work, and it got away from us. Offensively, we had some great looks. If you go back and watch the shots that Jake Hall had in that game, he could have had 40. And he ended up with 20. But he had so many good looks in that game.
Probably before he was getting the respect of the opposing scouting report.
No, and he got 15 threes off. I think he made 6, which was fine. But by his standards and the quality of those looks, honestly, he easily could have had 11 threes in that game. And I think that first half maybe looks a little different. Sure, we're getting torched, but we're scoring and staying within striking distance. So, I think it's easy to overreact to any kind of half or performance or type of sample size there. But I liked the response from our group, because we got it back to 4, we got it back to 5 or whatever it was against, legitimately one of the better teams in the country. I think they went another month or 2 without losing. And so, there were aspects of that I took from all right, well, if I hadn't screwed us up with all the zone and we had, played a little better, and Jake had made some shots that he's capable of making, that can look a little different, and sometimes you're always trying to rationalize and find those things. But, when I turned the film on, I didn't feel as bad about some of it as maybe it looked on the screen.
The 6-game stretch that I think was really just a lot of up and down was that Nebraska game, particularly the first half. You guys followed up the very next day with a Mississippi State win, though. And that's a good, it's an SEC team, Chris Jan's tough team. And you guys really, I thought, controlled that game for maybe even more than the final score showed. So the response was great.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing about that group last year is like we responded all the time. You know, we had, like you said, we had ups and downs, we had disappointments, we had good, but they continued to fight back. You know, we had some great leadership at that group with Luke Hop and you know, Dayton's an experienced player and just guys who I thought had a lot of maturity and allowed us to, you know, we never sort of like fell off a cliff. Like we
Yeah.
continued to fight back, and you know, I feel really good about that.
So it goes Nebraska, Mississippi State, then that Alabama State game where until the second half,
Alabama State might have been our worst performance of the season.
yeah, yeah, and to follow up that followed up what was a good from halftime of the Nebraska game. You know, three halves of basketball. It seemed like okay, this team's kind of starting to click a little bit, and then you come back and have that Alabama State game. You follow that up with the Highlands game, a Tomeo Pond special where I was happy to see Tomeo kind of do what he did, and everybody's excited and
Tomeo had a fantastic under 20 for France too.
absolutely, yeah, he did, and
Like
good for him, man. Like I hope he lights it up.
same. I hope he has a big time season.
You guys have the Highlands game, obviously, and then the Santa Clara game. You guys are looking great. You guys then go to VCU, huge road win. Things are starting to click for this Eric Olen Lobo team, and you know, there's a couple other games to sort of end non-conference. But then you start conference play with, again, a game that maybe wasn't as bad as fans are going to remember it, but it was the Boise State opener against or on the road against a Boise State team where it was really just your offense. I thought your defense in that game, it was the opposite of that Nebraska first half. I thought your defense played really well.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the story of our season was just you know, even when we had stretches of success like you're talking about here, like we were not as consistent as we needed to be. We were a little bit up and down, and you know, I think that's one. I want to say that was one. Jake had a rough night. You know, like didn't make a three, or he had a bunch of good looks that didn't go, and that. But like so did Boise. Like it was just everybody just kind of missing shots back and forth, and ultimately like they made a couple more plays in a one possession game. But again, like I came out of that like, man, if we can guard like that, if we can be in a one possession game on the road against at that time one of, you know, I know they had the early loss, but like Boise was a talented team, and you know they had their ups and downs, but their fastball was pretty good, and we felt like, hey, that's a pretty good game. You know, this is a quad one game where that was so winnable for us. You know, and we had a probably like a C minus type performance, if that, on offense, and we're in that game. You know, there's some encouraging aspects to that of, okay, well, if we can find that consistency, we're going to win our share.
I'm surprised to hear you say C minus offensively.
Yeah, that's probably generous.
there wasn't a whole lot of getting the ball inside that game, which was, and their length created the problem. I know they do that, but that you guys had a lot of trouble getting the ball inside and just passing back and forth. They seemed, if I remember correctly, I think that was the game. They kind of seemed to do a good job of keeping you guys on one half of the court, you know, on offense and just the movement in general. All right, I will rapid fire these next handful of league games. Loss at San Diego State in January. 83-79 was the final, but that was the final minute. What's your recollection? What's going to be your lasting memory of that loss at San Diego State?
You know, similar, like really good response to a poor first half, and you know, and then, you know, I made the decision to foul Miles up too in that one, and he made both free throws, so you know, take some responsibility there. But like, I don't have a lot of regrets. Like if he misses and we get it, like I like the position we're in, so. You know, that's one where like I think anytime like as a coach you make decisions that directly impact the result in a negative way, like those are going to stick with you a little bit. You know, credit to him for knocking down the free throws, but you know, again, just like going on the road and giving ourselves a chance in those environments, there's a level of disappointment that exists in all those things, but I think it just sort of solidified that if we can not play our best and be in a place to win against the best teams in the conference on the road, that, you know, we have a chance. You know, we can be one of the best teams in this league.
You did follow that up. The Fresno State, I guess the next one was the Fresno State home game. It wasn't the big one at Fresno State, but a little bit later, the next one I have on my list here is 3 games later at UNLV, one of your best dominant one-sided performances. That game at UNLV. Why was that game? Why did that game click the way it did?
I thought we played. It was a combination, right? So, like, I don't think we're 40 points better than the UNLV team. They're really talented. We saw what Gibbs Longhorn did across the league. I thought that some of it's matchups, right? Like, I thought we had some of the best point of attack defense in the conference with Dayton and Uriah. I thought they did a really good job making it difficult for him. He got frustrated, got in foul trouble. Tyron Jones, one of their best players, got hurt. So there's a lot of factors in games like that when they get away. But I thought it was a combination of us playing well, and then I think they would agree they played pretty poorly there. They turned it over. We got out in transition, and things just got away from them.
Following back-to-back home losses to Boise State and Utah State, you guys go to Grand Canyon. How big was that Grand Canyon win?
Yeah, that was a big one. Obviously you don't want to let those leads get away, which we really took control of that game and played great. But again, like, just another example of our guys' responsiveness to not playing well in a big moment, playing great on the road against another really good team. That was a big win for us. Obviously Jake hit a big shot late and had a couple shots down the stretch to kind of pull it out after really having control of the game. Played a little zone for the first time since Nebraska, so I thought that was a good adjustment from I think Coach Roberts in that spot to get us into zone and kind of slow them down enough to give Jake the chance to make some shots and get it after really having control, being up 20 something in the first.
A few games later, San Diego State in the pit. Anytime the Lobos beat San Diego State, fans go crazy and love it. That's a really good team you beat, though.
Yeah, I thought that was a big win for us. Good performance there. I think I'll always remember Luke Hopp hitting a big three. Like, as a couple guys that spent a lot of time in San Diego, like, that was pretty sweet. Pretty happy for him to have that moment. That was a cool moment for him.
I think that was the game too that changed Brian Dutcher's mind on recruiting international players that or maybe had some pro experience overseas, because Brian Dutcher now has some of his own at San Diego State after Tomislav basically doubled. That was actually Tomislav in both the San Diego State games were he was tremendous in both of the San Diego State games.
Yeah, and I think that's some of what you're seeing in some of this as you go through it, right? Is like a lot of matchup stuff, right? Like Boise was a difficult matchup for us. San Diego State was a pretty good matchup for Tomislav. I think our point of attack versus UNLV, like advantage, disadvantage type things in some of these. But Tomislav, like, they're switching him, and that's a really difficult thing to do.
Last game I want to ask you about, the NIT run was what it was. It was great, especially for a lot of reasons. The pit getting home games and all that. But the last game I do want to ask you about, I guess this is the damn media in me, but the regular season finale at Utah State, and you'd mentioned it earlier with the competitiveness of Jake. I would say that the interview I had with both Jake and you and the looks on both of your faces were man, let's talk to Jeff. This is going to be fun. You guys,
that's not personal. I think anybody would have gotten those looks from, it's disappointing, like.
And I'm the one there asking, hey, you guys just lost. That was really painful. Tell me about it. Like that's a horrible
it doesn't really matter the question or the con. You know what I mean? Like
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So, I think those are just situations that are tough and part of this game and sport. And we had a chance to get a share of a championship, and guys put a lot of work to get yourself in that position. And anytime you come up short in those moments, like they're disappointing. They're hard. They hurt, and you maybe never get over them.
You'll remember that one for a while, and I imagine Jake will too. And for Jake though, he had nothing to hang his head about.
He was unbelievable.
Except for the fact that he was a Lobo that day, and the Lobos lost, and in his mind, that's all that mattered, and that tells you something about him.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. Like, as much as like people talk about the act, right? Like how many threes he made and the points he scored, and freshman of the year, first team, right? Jay cares about winning. Jay cares about winning first and foremost, and I think that's part of what makes him special, especially in this landscape where there's a lot of factors that can make it individual, and Jake cares about winning, and he cares about team success.
All right, there you go. There's the first part of my two-part podcast that I'm going to be releasing on Eric Olen, UNM Lobo second-year basketball coach. The second part coming up, I will release on Monday. That'll be episode 128. That'll be really player specific. We just kind of break down this year's roster as it stands now. Anything can change. We know with college athletics right now. But that second part will break down player by player, some thoughts on every person on every player on Eric's roster. That'll be coming out on Monday. But this episode, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the conversation with Eric, and I certainly appreciate Eric for taking well over an hour of his day to have this conversation with the Journal and with myself. So again, I said it in the beginning of the show before I spoke with Eric. But if you have any advertising or sponsorship interest in this or any of the sports podcasts that the Journal is putting out, the 5 I can help you out with directly are the Talking Grammar podcast, Sean Ryder's Writer's Block podcast, and we also do have a weekly show, ABQ Journal Sports Live, every Tuesday. Sean Ryder and I, for 90 minutes, talk all things Lobo sports, take your questions and comments on air, and then also the post-game football show, live show that Sean and I do, recapping all the football games and taking your reader comments and questions. And come basketball season, I will get back to there's a 32-game regular season, so we'll have at least 32 episodes of a pregame show live from the arena where I'm setting up that day's game, injury reports, just status of the team, any other updates. So pregame basketball shows, postgame football shows, live weekly show with Sean and I, plus Writer's Block podcast that Sean Ryder does, and this Talking Grammar podcast. For now, until next time, guys, thanks for being here.